Billionaire Alexander Carter, known for his cold heart and towering empire, never imagined that a single moment could change his life. But when a boy in shabby clothes presented him with a painting of his luxurious home, something stirred inside him. But what if this boy knew more than just his home? What if he held the key to a missing part of Alexander's past? You won't believe the surprise that's coming later. This isn't just a story about a beggar boy, it's about a secret that will haunt Alexander for the rest of his life. Trust me, you can't even imagine how this story ends. On a cold, gloomy afternoon, billionaire Alexander Carter stopped his car at a traffic light and saw a ragged little boy standing by the curb. The boy said, "Sir, please buy my drawing, I'm very hungry." The boy reached out his hand holding a crumpled piece of paper. Alexander Carter was the kind of man everyone feared, a 45-year-old and one of the richest men in the city. He owned skyscrapers, and his name echoed in boardrooms all over the country. But despite his immense wealth, he had no family or real friends, and his heart had grown cold a long time ago. His life was all about work, thriving on control, power, and money. As for emotions, as he often told himself, they were mostly for the weak. On that fateful day, Alexander was heading home from yet another high-level meeting that had gone exactly as he planned. He had everything: a sprawling mansion on the outskirts of the city, luxury cars, private jets, and a world that bent to his will. As his sleek black car approached the traffic light, a small voice pierced his thoughts. He heard it say, "Sir, please buy my drawing. I'm very hungry." He looked to the side and saw a boy no older than 7 or 8 years old. The child was wearing oversized, tattered clothes. His face was pale. He looked hungry, and in his small hand there was a single piece of paper. Alexander's first instinct was to ignore the boy. He was used to beggars, to the needy, to those who were looking for charity. In his mind, the story was always the same: someone else's burden, someone else's failure. But something in the boy's eyes stopped him. He rolled down his window and motioned for the child to come closer. The boy approached the car, raised the paper, and Alexander took it in his hands. What Alexander saw was not just a simple child's scribble. The drawing was primitive, but striking. It depicted a grand palace, a palace that looked eerily familiar. Alexander's hands trembled slightly as his eyes moved over the details. It wasn't just any palace. It was his palace. The sprawling gardens, the tall windows, the fountain in the courtyard. Everything was drawn there with the precision of a child who didn't know the palace. But that wasn't what shocked Alexander. What shocked him was that there were 2 people standing in front of the palace. In the drawing, a tall man in a black suit stood beside a small boy holding his hand. Alexander's heart skipped a beat, and his eyes widened when he recognized himself as the man in the drawing. But how? How could this beggar child know such intimate details about his life? About his home? Who was this boy? Alexander was truly shocked and couldn't speak. Finally, Alexander managed to ask, "Where did you learn to draw this?" The boy looked down and quietly said, "I don't know, sir. It's just something I see in my head sometimes. My mother always said I have a good imagination." Alexander asked him, "Where is your mother?" The boy said, his eyes full of sadness, "My mother passed away last year. I have no one now, sir. I just wanted to sell my drawing to buy something to eat." Alexander felt an unusual tightness in his chest, a feeling he hadn't experienced in years. Is it compassion? No, it's more than compassion. It's a strange feeling. All he had to do was drive away, toss the drawing aside, and go on with his life, but something stopped him. He reached into his wallet, pulled out a new bill, and handed it to the boy, saying, "Take this. It's enough for food." The boy's eyes sparkled, but he shook his head and said, "I can't take this for free. Sir, you should keep the drawing." Alexander stared at the boy for a long moment, then placed the drawing on the seat beside him. The boy smiled gratefully as he took the money. "Thank you, sir. Thank you so much." Before Alexander could say anything else, the traffic light turned green, and the cars behind him started honking their horns, so he drove away while watching the boy in his rearview mirror. But as he sped away, the drawing remained etched in his mind. It was too strange to ignore, and too moving to forget. That night, Alexander sat in his spacious living room and placed the drawing on the table in front of him. He couldn't shake the feeling that the boy's drawing was more than just a coincidence. There was something deeply unsettling about it, how the child had depicted his life with such accuracy. The more he stared at it, the more the details seemed to come alive. The mansion, the boy man, all memories rising to the surface. Memories he had buried deep a long time ago. Alexander did not have an ordinary childhood. He grew up in a poor family, and he was that same hungry child. His mother died at an early age, and his father disappeared and abandoned him. Alexander struggled hard to escape that life and build his own empire, leaving the past behind. But now, as he looks at the painting, all the memories come back to him again. Over the next few days, Alexander couldn't think of anything but that painting. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the palace. The young man felt that he had to find the boy again, to understand the strange feeling he had experienced. But the city was vast, and finding a single beggar in a sea of people was impossible. Days turned into weeks, and the boy still haunted him. He began to struggle at work, as his obsession with finding the boy grew. He was distracted, emotionally unsettled in an unusual way. He stopped attending meetings, and rumors about him began to spread. Then one day, as he was leaving his office, Alexander saw the same boy standing at the same corner where they had met before. This time he didn't hesitate and approached the boy. Alexander knelt down to meet the child's eyes and said, "Hey you, I want to talk to you." The boy looked at him, surprised, but he wasn't afraid. He said, "Is everything all right, sir?" Alexander took a deep breath and asked, "This drawing you gave me, how did you know about the palace? About the man? About me?" The boy seemed confused. "I didn't know, sir. I told you it's just something I see in my head and I don't know why." Alexander's heart skipped a beat. Then he asked him, "What's your name?" The boy answered hesitantly, "Ethan." Alexander said, "Ethan, do you have somewhere to go? Any family?" Ethan shook his head. "No, sir. I've been alone for a while." Without thinking, Alexander made a shocking decision and said, "Come with me." Ethan's eyes widened in surprise. "Where to, sir?" "To my house. I think we're connected somehow, and I need to find out why." When Alexander brought Ethan to his palace, the staff were shocked. Throughout their years working with him, Alexander had never shown such kindness to anyone, let alone a street child. But Alexander felt something deeper, something beyond mere charity. He had to understand the boy and his strange ability. Days passed, and as Ethan settled into Alexander's house, more oddities began to appear. The boy was drawn to certain rooms in the mansion, including a room that Alexander himself rarely entered. Ethan would often stare at the walls or the old furniture, as if they held hidden meanings. Then one night, Ethan asked an unthinkable question. Hesitantly, Ethan said, "Sir, what is the story of the boy who used to live here before?" Did Alexander freeze? A boy really did live in the palace years ago, but it was a long time ago. Alexander was confused. How could Ethan know? Alexander asked in a tense voice. "Which boy?" Ethan said, his eyes distant. As if recalling a memory, the one who used to play in the gardens. He was happy here until he didn't come back. Likewise, memories raced through Alexander's mind. There was a boy, his son from a past he had long tried to forget. His son had died in a tragic accident when he was a small child, but no one knew about it. Alexander kept that part of his life closed off, even from his closest partners. The pain was intense, but Ethan's words brought everything back. The sorrow, the loss, the guilt. He had buried it deep and focused on building his empire to forget the pain. But now it seems the past has found its way back to him through a child who shouldn't have to know any of this. Alexander could no longer deny the truth. Ethan's strange knowledge of the mansion and his precise drawing were unnatural, something that couldn't be ignored. He took Ethan by the hand and led him to the old children's room, the room that had remained untouched since his son's death. When they entered, Ethan's eyes widened, and he smiled gently, then whispered, "This was his room. He used to sit here by the window, waiting for you to come home." Alexander held his breath because he had often been absent during his son's short life, busy with his work and the pursuit of wealth. He thought there was still more time, but fate did not grant him enough. Alexander's eyes filled with tears as he knelt beside Ethan, and through his tears he asked him, "How do you know all this?" Ethan gazed at him with soulful eyes and said, "I don't know, I just feel it." Suddenly, Alexander understood. Ethan wasn't just any child. He reminded Alexander of the son he lost and the love he gave up for wealth. The boy in the drawing wasn't just a random figure. He was Alexander's son, reaching out to him from the other world, reaching out through Ethan. In the weeks that followed, Alexander's life changed in ways he could never have imagined. He adopted Ethan and gave the boy the home and family he had never known. But more importantly, Alexander found something he had lost long ago. He found his heart. The mansion, which had once been a cold symbol of his wealth, became a home filled with laughter and love. Ethan's presence healed the wounds Alexander had carried for so long. In the end, it wasn't the boy's drawing that changed Alexander's life, but the love he rediscovered in a child that brought him back to life. He found the past, and despite the pain, he found a way to make peace with the present.